that one more time. No more.
No more shackles, no more chains, no more bondage. I am free.
Y'all sound good. Now hear me out on this one. And we all gather together and say, hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free.
We talking about freedom today, right, y'all? Come on, y'all. We're talking about freedom today, right, y'all? All right. All right. Me. Don't let me go. Who cares what they see? Who cares what they know? Your first name is free, last name is dumb. We choose to believe and where we're from. Man's red flower is in every living thing. Choose to believe. Freedom! freedom, 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 freedom. When a baby first breathes, when the night sees sunrise, when the whale hunts the sea, when men recognize freedom, 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 free, 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 freedom, yeah, freedom, 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 yeah, freedom. Hold on to me, don't you let me go. Who cares what they see? Who cares what they know? Your first name is free, your last name is dumb. Who choose to believe in where we're from? Yeah, man's red flower is in every living thing. Mind, use your power, spirit, use your wings. Freedom, 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 yeah, freedom. La 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 la. Y'all say it with us, la 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 da da la 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 da da la 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 da da la. Talking about freedom, y'all. Talking about freedom, y'all. Talking about freedom, y'all. Freedom, y'all. Free, free, free,
All right, can we continue to give them a hand, our unity choir today? Y'all can do better than that. Oh, y'all can do better than that. They have come and blessed us to greet us in this place on today. We are blessed to be in this place. Amen. Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. Welcome to the annual Martin Luther King Jr. Unity Processional and Commemorative Event. You have just heard the Martin Luther King Jr. Unity Choir, and they have truly blessed us today. Amen. I want to give them another hand. You can. I greet you today. I am Reverend Terrence Evans, pastor of Greater Ward Chapel AME Church. And following our prayer this afternoon, you will hear Miss Takara Rowe singing one of Dr. King's favorite songs, Precious Lord. May we all bow now for prayer. Dear God, today we gather in your name, honoring you for what you do and who you are. In the spirit of unity and peace, we assemble to thank you for this day, for your presence and provision. As we pause to celebrate the life and legacy of your servant, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., we humbly request that you endow us with the spirit and faith to serve, to agitate, and to profess your goodness in an intentional effort to destroy isms of division, create opportunities for all, and to change humanity for the better. Use us all today as we come together as one body to be examples of your mercy and your love. Oh God, please bless this celebration, the participants, and all who are assembled for your glory. This is our sincere request, petition, and plea. We ask it in your merciful and loving name, and we say together, amen.
Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, and let me stand. I am tired. I am weak, and I am worn through the storm and through the night. Lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, and lead me home.
Glory to God. Amen. Thank you so much, Mrs. Rowe. What a beautiful rendition of this powerful hymn of the church. I ask now that all who are physically able to please stand as we prepare for the national anthem. We'll be led by Garrett Jemerson. Garrett Jemerson is a student at the University of Georgia who has for many years produced and performed in the Reason for the Season Holiday Benefit at Glen Anthony Baptist Church. Please welcome Garrett as he sings the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Awesome. You may be seated. Amen. It's a bit of housekeeping. Our mayor will acknowledge all of the elected and appointed officials at a later time when he is doing his remarks following today's speaker. Also like to draw your attention to the rear of the facility for those persons who are in need of registration to vote. The men of Omega Psi Phi have a voter registration table there, and you can visit them in the rear. Additionally, there are local artists who have their wares here, so please take an opportunity to visit with them before you leave today. I am honored to lend my voice and my presence to today's activities. Admittedly, it is a small voice, having heard the measured and effective words that have changed the world that our dear brother, great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. has done. Today, we honor Dr. King by recognizing one of his greatest accomplishments, being the motivation for the influx of approximately 250,000 people into Washington on August the 28th, 1963, for the March on Jobs and Freedom, with the purpose of advocating for civil and economic rights for African Americans. Today, we honor his work and the momentous march by presenting some of the songs from that 1963 march that set the tone for a movement. One genre of music that was grounded and did ground the movement was gospel. Gospel music has always been a mainstay of the African American experience and has melodiously conveyed the struggle and the hope to surmount obstacles. Mahalia Jackson, deemed the queen of gospel, rendered 2 songs before urging Dr. King to tell them about the dream, Martin. Here today to sing 2 songs are Miss Beverly Hammond singing How I Got Over, and Mrs. Karen Rowell Thompson singing I've Been Buked and I've Been Scorned.
And wonder how I made it over, how I got over, how I got over, my Lord. My soul look back and wonder how I made it over. Coming from the north, south, east, and west, on the way to the land of rest. Coming up from every nation, on the way to a great coronation. I'm gonna sing hallelujah. You know I'm gonna shout. Trouble over. My soul look back and wonder how I made it over. How I got over. How I got over. this morning. I want to thank God this evening. I want to thank Him for how He brought me. I'm going to thank God for how He taught me. I'm going to thank Him for how He kept me. Gonna thank Him 'cause He never left me. I'm gonna thank Him for old time living. Gonna thank Him for giving me a vision. Gonna join the heavenly choir. Gonna thank, never get time. Gonna thank God for all He done for me. Hallelujah. 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 Thank you, Lord. Hallelujah. Yeah. Yeah. Hallelujah.
I've been buked and I've been scorned. Yes, I've been buked and I've been scorned. Children, I've been buked and I've been scorned. I've been talked about, souls you born. There is trouble all over this world. Yes, there is trouble all over this world. Children, there is trouble all over this world. There is trouble all over this world. Ain't why lay my religion down. No, ain't why lay my religion down. Children, ain't why lay my religion down. Ain't why lay my religion down. I've been buked and I've been scorned. Yes, I've been buked and I've been scorned. Children, I've been buked and I've been scorned. I've been talked about, shows you born.
Martin Luther King Jr. was born in Atlanta, Georgia in 1929. Faith was always an important part of daily life, as both his father and grandfather were Baptist ministers. He thrived at a segregated high school, graduating at 15, before heading off to Morehouse College. He then dedicated 3 years to theological study at Crozier Seminary in Pennsylvania. While earning his graduate degree at Boston University, he met Coretta Scott, who he would marry and have 4 children with. King and his family settled in Montgomery, Alabama, when he became the 20th pastor of the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. When Rosa Parks was arrested for refusing to relinquish her seat to a white man on a Montgomery City bus in 1955, the incident lit a fire under the burgeoning civil rights movement.
His boycott of the bus system in Montgomery, Alabama was tremendously successful because he was incredibly strategic, and he worked with other people to get the individuals in Montgomery, Alabama to understand that they weren't going to take it anymore.
King's experience, passion for the cause, and position in the community gave him the credentials to become a leader in the 381-day boycott of the city buses. On December 20th, 1956, the Supreme Court ruled segregated buses to be unconstitutional. This was a major victory for the civil rights cause and proved King's nonviolent methods of protest could yield results. King was now the national face of the civil rights cause. He was jailed over 20 times, was once stabbed in the chest, his house was bombed, and he suffered relentless personal attacks on himself and his family. For a man of peaceful intentions, he unfortunately spent much of his life the target of violent intent, yet the threats never stopped him.
Dr. King inspired thousands of people through his eloquence and through his fearlessness, especially after his home was firebombed with his wife and his children. They showed through their courage that they were prepared to give their lives to the cause of freedom.
King worked tirelessly to promote the cause he so strongly believed in. And from 1957 through 1968, he traveled over 6 million miles, delivered 2,500 speeches, wrote 5 books, and dozens of articles. His hard work and ability to communicate earned him such respect that he earned the ear of President John F. Kennedy, who personally met with King. Of all the speeches King delivered, none has stood the test of time like his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. Symbolically delivered from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in 1963, in front of 250,000 people, both black and white. King had become such a force in America that he was named Time Magazine's Man of the Year in 1963. A nice achievement indeed, but it paled in comparison when in 1964 he became the youngest man ever to win the Nobel Peace Prize.
Martin Luther King Jr. was an American. He was deeply American. And what's striking to me is that he had more confidence and faith in American democracy, in the Constitution, and in the principles of fairness and opportunity than nearly all of his critics.
While in Memphis to lead a protest march defending the rights of striking garbage workers in April of 1968, King delivered a rousing speech titled, "I've Been to the Mountaintop." It would be his last. Standing on the balcony of his second-floor room at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, King was shot and killed. In 1983, Ronald Reagan signed a proclamation declaring the third Monday of every January Martin Luther King Jr. Day, a public holiday to celebrate the man and what he stood for.
Undoubtedly, what is most remembered from the 1963 March on Washington is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech. On that day, other events of note took place. W.E.B. Du Bois had died the night before in Ghana, and that was sad news for many in the crowd. James Baldwin was not permitted to address the crowd because of the possible inflammatory nature of his words. Josephine Baker, though not on the official program, was the only female speaker. In addition to Ms. Baker, others who were not on the official program raised their voices to support the plight of the jobless and otherwise disenfranchised. Musical groups like Peter, Paul, and Mary brought their music to the audience. Many people spoke and the music played. Folk songs like Blowing in the Wind. Please greet Dr. Carlos Wise, accompanied by Mr. John Skinner, as he sings the Bob Dylan folk song, Blowing in the Wind.
How many roads must a man walk down before you will call him a man? And how many seas must a white dove sail before she can sleep in the sand? And how many times must the cannonball fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many years can a mountain exist before it is blown into the sea? And how many years must a people exist before they're allowed to be free? And how many times must a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many times must a man look up and still never see the sky? And how many ears must one man have before he can hear the people cry? And how many deaths will it take until he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
Awesome job, awesome. Can we give them another hand, please? The sound system that day was capable of being heard throughout the mall, and organizers had been willing to pay as much as $20,000. That's 10 times more than what sound systems cost at that time to ensure that sound was heard. The evening before the march, saboteurs destroyed the system, which had to be rebuilt by the Army Signal Corps of Engineers. Despite the challenges of the day, the sound system resonantly played the music that was the backdrop to the power of the movement. Undaunted, the event went on. Marian Anderson, delayed and unable to sing the national anthem that day, led the throngs of people assembled in a rousing rendition of He's Got the Whole World in His Hands, following Dr. King's speech. To commemorate that event, please welcome Mrs. Sonia Roberts singing that familiar song.
He's got the whole world in His hands. 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 He's got the woods and the waters in His hands. He's got the woods and the waters in His hands. He's got the sun and the moon right in His hands. He's got the whole world in His hands. He's got the birds and the bees right in His hands. He's got the birds and the bees right in His hands. He's got the beast of the field right in His hands. He's got the whole world in His hands. He's got you and me right in His hands. He's got you and me right in His hands. He's got everybody in His hands. He's got the whole world in His hands. He's got you and me right in His hands. He's got you and me right in His hands. He's got everybody in His hands. He's got the whole world in His hands. He's got the whole world in His hands.
Absolutely amazing. Amazing, amazing. It's good to know that He has the whole world in His hands. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, Ms. Roberts. Amen. We've come to a point where we are about to hear from our speaker for today. I want to share just a little bit about him. But before that, talk about how the March on Washington affected him and brought him to this place. The 1963 March on Washington was a peaceful demonstration calling for jobs and freedom. Though Dr. King did not use the words economic empowerment specifically in the words he espoused that day, the freedoms for which he fought were to result in his people prospering, whether employee or employer. Today, our speaker is someone who can speak to that. Mr. William Picard, born on January the 28th, 1941 in LaGrange, Georgia. Someone who has written books on economic empowerment and the freedom of what it means to have and create and choose your own jobs. As chairman of Global Automotive Alliance, co-managing partner of MGM Grand Detroit Casino, CEO of Bearwood Management Company, and co-owner of 5 Black-owned newspapers, our speaker is equipped to tell us a few things about positioning ourselves to build wealth. Additionally, he will bring what our grandmothers might have called mother wit. Just give us some plain old common sense. Please welcome our speaker for today, Dr. William Picard.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good morning. Oh, by the way, where is Sister Roberts? Honey, you put your foot in that thing. Let's give her another round of applause. God bless you. I don't know about your pastor, but I might come back to Columbus to hear you sing one morning. Come on down. Good morning. Good afternoon. Is it afternoon now? How you doing, Mr. Mayor? Listen. K-side to the day I die. Whoa. The Alphas bless you guys. Listen, my name is Bill Picard, and it's so good to be close to home. I'm from LaGrange, Georgia. Anybody here ever heard about LaGrange, Georgia? Yeah. Well, you see, there's an advantage to coming home because in Detroit and New York and California, the first thing somebody asks you, where is LaGrange, Georgia? I said, well, look at it. If you had majored in geography, you would know where LaGrange, Georgia is. But since you did not major in geography, let me tell you where LaGrange, Georgia is. LaGrange, Georgia is 30 minutes from Atlanta, Georgia by telephone. You know. So they get it. But no, it's always indeed a pleasure to be home, Mr. Mayor, and I want to just commend you for being newly installed as mayor and had the wisdom to still make this day an important day. And I want to thank the gentleman for the kind introduction. And obviously you know by now that when you're from LaGrange, you've been to Columbus many times growing up. And this is a special place for me. I was telling the officer, Officer Graham, where is he? Where did he go that quick? Where are you, bro? Stand, okay. Because I forgot my tie. I didn't have a tie. So I called officer, hey, bro, man, I said, I know you're a good Kappa and I'm a good Alpha. You got a black and gold? He said, no, I got a gray one. So here I am in his. Isn't that a pretty tie? Isn't that a nice tie? Thank you, bro. Well, listen, Dr. King. Now, most people know reference to Dr. King for the tremendous civil rights, human rights leader that he was, and he was that. But the next 10 or 15 minutes, I want to share with you his journey, because he went from civil rights, C-I-V-I-L, to silver rights, S-I-L-V-E-R, money. At the end of his life, he was talking about how do we help people have a decent life, a decent wage. And remember, he died fighting for garbage men to get a better pay. But I must tell you, I got a little nervous when the MC kind of introduced me, because he told you something that I should have asked him to take out of his introduction. He told you that I am the co-managing partner of the MGM Casino in Detroit. Now, I'm from LaGrange, and my mama is a sure-enough Baptist woman. And my mama called me up saying, boy, have you lost your mind? Drinking and gambling and dancing in a casino? She said, your granddaddy would turn over in his grave if he knew you was involved with gambling and dancing and naked. I said, mother, now wait a minute. It's not like that anymore. These are nice casinos where people can come and enjoy themselves and have dinner and all that and all that. She said, I don't care. It's tainted money. No matter what you say, it's tainted money. I said, my dear, I'm going to tell you what Granddaddy said. Only thing wrong with tainted money, taint enough of it, you know? So I have to kind of watch that when I come home, you know, because this is home. By the way, you know, somebody said, well, Pickard, how did you get down here? Well, what happened? Well, I got to be honest, you know. And unfortunately, you know, I wish I was 6'2", Denzel Washington, but I is what I is. I got to tell you, you know. And I got a phone call, Bob Wright. Bill, what's going on? I said, man, I'm sitting here in Florida in my home, looking at the water. I don't play golf, so I'm reading a book. What's up? Pick, you got to come to Columbus. I said, for what? I said, man, it's wintertime. I'm not going to leave Florida. He said, well, do you still believe in free speech? I said, free speech? I said, everybody believes in free speech, Bob. What are you talking about? He said, do you believe in free speech? I said, yes, I do. He said, well, if you believe in free speech, be in Columbus on Saturday, January 19th and give a free speech. So here I is, okay? I'm here. I'm here. And wait, now Bob is in Hawaii or somewhere flying around the world in this private jet. And, you know, Calvin, I love Calvin. He's a good state representative. Now, Bill, you be sure, let people know I was going to be there with you to greet you and be there with you, but I'm in Atlanta with the King family. I said, the King family? I said, can they vote for you? He said, neither can you, so anyway. But I'm glad to be here. My boss here, I had the pleasure of teaching at Alabama State, and my boss, Dr. Booth, who resides in Columbus. Wave, Dr. Booth. That's my boss. Okay, quickly. Now, ironically, I'm an elderly gentleman. I've been very blessed. I know I look good, I smell good, and I'm up to good things, you know. But I was in Washington, D.C. doing the March on Washington as a young man, and I had the blessings when I was 19 years of age to meet Dr. King as a student. I later met him many, many other times when I worked for the NAACP in Cleveland, Ohio. And I was thinking about this because there was a time there was a company in America called Sealtest Milk and Ice Cream. And every Saturday morning they would have this thing called the Big Top on TV. Now y'all young folks, y'all don't know what I'm talking about, but some of y'all do. And Dr. King was boycotting Sealtest, and I had the pleasure of getting to know him reasonably well as a young man. So today, let's spend a moment talking about the journey of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. from civil rights, C-I-V-I-L, to silver, S-I-L-V-E-R, rights. Now, I don't want y'all to meet none of my cousins in LaGrange one day and say, listen, y'all cousin came down there and just talked about money, 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 and Dr. King and money, money, money. I want to make it crystal clear. Money is not my God. But I do put it up with oxygen and water and breathing, you know. So don't say that. But I must tell you, first of all, that the journey of civil rights to what I will call economic empowerment is a wonderful one when you look at the history of the last 70, 80 years in America. And it's no secret that Dr. King gave his life working for the least of God's children, the garbage man in Memphis, Tennessee. It is no secret that Dr. King was planning a poor people's march on Washington. So the point is, Dr. King was getting into the notion that all of God's children have a right to a decent life, financially, independence, to take care of their families, etc. That's where he was headed. And of course, I think that is the essence of life, that each one of us has a God-given ability to become and to be much greater than we'd ever could imagine. There's no limitations what anyone in this room cannot achieve. Black, white, rich, or poor. I'm from LaGrange, Georgia, and I know what God can do. There's no question in my mind. And I'm like Jay-Z, I got 99 problems, but money ain't one of them. You know what I mean? So I don't apologize for this, but I want you to understand this journey and how each and every one of us have a responsibility to take care of our own families, to assist in any way we can, and then to help the community and help our fellow man and woman. Because none of us, as great as you think you are and as great as you are, none of us got to this place by ourselves. We're standing on the shoulders of good people who made a way out of no way. And I must point this out. Dr. King came to this town July 1st, 1958, because a leading black doctor had been assassinated in this town. And this tells you how progress is made. Even the black churches did not want Dr. King to speak that night from their pulpit because they were concerned about the things that could happen to their church once he left. So he went to the Prince Hall Masons and gave a great speech. So I want you to understand that Dr. King wasn't always loved by black folks or white folks because he was talking about what? Change. And then when he started talking about change and economic justice, it got even more complicated for him. But I'm blessed to tell you that I'm a beneficiary of the things that Dr. King worked for and prayed for, because my life is reflective of that magic moment in America when black folks and white folks came together to help the least of God's children. People oftentimes say to me, well, Pickard, why did you go to college to be a social worker? I mean, you know, why didn't you be a doctor or a lawyer? I said, I'm surprised you'd ask me that question. We've been talking for 3 minutes, and you know I couldn't pass chemistry or English, so I became a social worker. But as my grandfather would say, and as God would say, it's not where you are, it's where you going. And so I share my quick story with you about America to let you know that all things are possible. And he that believeth in himself and herself, all things are possible. And I don't need to tell you who the essence of my life is, because I hope and pray that he's also the essence of your life. But let me tell you quickly where we are now. Just think about this. Dr. King was assassinated 51 years ago. This country is in many regards worse today than it was then. But look what has happened to black America. We've elected a black president twice. We now have 3 black United States senators. We have dozens of United States representatives in Congress. And what I'm proud of, we have black billionaires. Money talk, walks, okay? This is America. And I happen to know a couple of those billionaires, and I'm just going to take a couple of minutes and tell you about their journey, not because money is everything, but because it gives you an idea that this young lady right here can come and achieve anything she desires in life. And you know these names pretty good. First one is a woman, Oprah. Now think about this girl. Born poor, mom and dad is separated, grew up in a single household, kind of chubby, ain't light and damn near white, you know. Get on TV, she doesn't do well. They shift her from one city to another city because they don't think she has that X factor on the TV camera. And they ship her to Chicago, Illinois, where they think that will be the end of her life and her career as a TV personality. And then God stepped in. And then Oprah went and got a groove. And now, as you know better than I, she's a billionaire in America. And she started out with literally nothing. But that's not the exciting part about it. The exciting part about it is that she's helped folk. Black, white, blue and green, Africa and Asia, around the world. So remember, it ain't where you start, it's where you're going. But then there's another lady you know about named Madam C.J. Walker. Now, she's my shero. Now, Madam C.J. Walker was born 2 years after slavery in 1867. And this woman's story is remarkable. Now, I know you know she could do hair. I know you know she became a millionaire. But here's what I want to tell you. She was married at 13. She was a mother at 15. She was a widower at 17 and was a millionaire at 39. No education, no SBA loan, no Lord have mercy programs. She said, I got my start by giving myself a start. This is what happens in America. This is what happens when good people in black and white, rich and poor, come together to invest in our people. But the other billionaire is my new hero. Now I got to ask you all a question. Now remember, I'm from LaGrange, and we can be straight. How many people here have heard of a billionaire named Robert F. Smith? Come on now. A billionaire, a black man, 56 years old, named Robert F. Smith. Come on, y'all. I'm going to come down to East Columbus School, Mr. Mayor, and start teaching. Well, quickly, Robert F. Smith is a black man. He's worth about $6 billion. He's from Denver, Colorado. He went to Cornell University. He was a major in chemistry. He became a chemical engineer. Of course, he pledged A Phi A. But more importantly, he went back to Columbus University and got his MBA. He now is a CEO, chairman, and founder of a company called Vista Equities. Come on, y'all. If I talk about Jay-Z and Beyonce and all that, you know who I'm talking about. Robert F. Smith. Get your phones out, Google him, try to get to know him, try to marry his daughter or something, you know. Come on. Now, Mr. Mayor, I was with Robert Smith in Detroit on Wednesday. Now, I wish I had been just 2 or 3, but it was about 50 people. But he said something that I will never, ever forget. He said, my mama was a school teacher. My daddy was a school teacher. We grew up in Denver, Colorado. We were best middle-class people who were school teachers. He said, but every month, my mother did one thing. She sent $50 to the United Negro College Fund. And he said, that's why I'm proud to say today that I'm giving $30 million to the United Negro College Fund. Robert F. Smith. You ought to know that name. You ought to tell your grandchildren, your children about it, your neighbors, your white friends, your black friends, because it tells you one thing, that excellence is superior to all these other isms that we like to talk about. But I bore you with him because I want to tell you about another lady. We're talking about the business of America, the things that Dr. King emerged into. Now, I wish I looked like Denzel Washington, but I don't. I wish I had born with a mom and daddy who had money, but that ain't what God gave me. I'm kind of like this lady that came from Mississippi. Her name was Lillian Harris, Harris. She arrived in New York in 1919. No education, weighing about 200 pounds, and she said, Lord, I'm glad to get out of Mississippi, but I don't want to work in white folks' kitchens no more. I want to do something on my own. Lillian Harris Dean. Get your phones out. You got to Google this. This ain't the NAACP. This is facts, okay? This woman had $5. She bought her a number 10 tub. Y'all too young to know what a number, some of y'all. She bought a number 10 tub. She bought a baby carriage, cut the bottom out of it, put some charcoals in it, and went to a place in Harlem called 135th and Lenox. And she started selling pig feet, hog maws, chitlins, and greens on 135th and Lenox. If you Google, her name is Lillian Harris Dean, but she became known as Pigfoot Mary. But the real shout here is that Pigfoot Mary was so successful, she opened up 2 more pig feet stands. And in 1929, the New York Times did a story on her. Now, she only went to New York in 1919. 10 years later, in today's world, her property, the homes she had bought, the money she had, was equivalent today to $15.4 million. Is God able? Cooking pig feet. So I bore you with these stories to tell you that Dr. King was on the right track. And every one of us have to understand that the business of America is business. Now I'm gonna close up by giving you some facts. And I know y'all gonna run me back to LaGrange, but I ain't going to LaGrange, I'm going to Florida, okay? But here's where we are. We got this black president, we got these black US senators, but our economy, the money that we get every first of the month, the 15th of the month, every Friday and Saturday, as a country, all the black people in this country have an income coming in of about $1.3 trillion. Now, how much money is that? It is more than the gross national product of Canada. We have more money coming into black folks' hands than white folks and black folks have in their hands in Canada as a country. We are the second largest black nation in the world. Only Nigeria has more people than we do. So why is it that we're born poor, we die poor, and we make everybody else rich in between? What is that? What's going on? Now, the good news is this. We have black folks now who are doing almost anything you can think of. University of Michigan last week had a black young lady, 27 years of age, graduated with a PhD in physics. Now, I can't even spell mathematics. She had a PhD in physics. So all these things are possible, but we gotta find a way to capture some of that money that comes in our community. Whether it's Columbus, whether it's Chicago, whether it's Detroit or New York, the challenge is the same. We get paid on Friday. In the white community, the dollar circulates about 13 times before it goes out. In the Jewish community, it circulates about 24 times before it goes out. In the Asian community, the money turns over 30 times before it goes out. In our community, it stays 7 hours. 5, 6, 7 hours. We cannot become an independent people when we keep using dependent thinking. We must change it. And it doesn't start with them. It doesn't start with her. It starts with each one of us. I know how difficult it is sometimes to find a black store that does this or does that, but every little bit helps. But the good news is this. We now have people in businesses and doing things that we never thought about. Google that brother Robert F. Smith and see some of the things and companies that he owns and things that he's doing. I am conscious about where I spend my money. I am very conscious about where I spend my money. When I go to the Urban League and NAAC convention, I'm looking around to see who are the sponsors. And if I see a company that sponsors something that I buy, that's where I want to buy it from. Because I'm making an investment in them, because they're making an investment in my community. And we all can do a better job of this. As I go to my seat, I have good news. I have a book out. So everybody, write down the name of my book. It's called Millionaire Moves, Mr. Mayor. Millionaire Moves. It's about a young black boy from LaGrange, Georgia, who grew up, like a lot of people grow up, poor, but hungry and thirsty for knowledge and for an opportunity. And I got 99 problems, but money ain't one of them. So I wrote a book called Millionaire Moves. And what I'm so excited about, I've been on more than 60 college campuses, some black, some white. And we got a cadre of young black men and women who are ready. They are ready to come out in America and do good and take care of themselves and take care of their families. And you got to help us. And the best way you can help is to first of all, take care of your own family. When you get on the airline, what do they say? In case of the loss of power in the plane, the first thing you do is put your own mask on. Then you help someone else. So we must become examples to our young people and to our grandchildren and to our community about what we can do. And you know what? I feel good about this. Look at this town called Columbus. You produce some great people. You got a mayor here who's been in office 2 days or 2 weeks. He still said we're going to have Martin Luther King Day. And I think that's pretty good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And this is not a day to be on. This is not a day to be off. This is a day to be engaged. This is a day to be engaged. You ought to sit down and talk to folk about Dr. King. You ought to Google Robert F. Smith. You ought to know who Pickfoot Mary is or was. You need to know these stories and tell them to our children, because this is how we all know that everything is possible. And I'm so happy to see the men of KSI here today, because I know they're going to carry the message about the importance of education, training, networking. Now, I don't get hung up on trying to be this or that to anybody, but I'm going to tell you something. If you don't network, you might not work. You got to have friends and loved ones and everywhere you go. Well, I done probably overstayed my welcome. I probably done messed up the mayor's remarks and everything else. But before I go to my seat, I do want to say this, that these towns like LaGrange and Columbus and Montgomery, we are doing pretty good, but we can do better. But I want you sometime to just think about your grandparents and what they had to go through in these towns. Just think how life was for them in 1920 and 1930 and 1940. When I think about what my granddad and my grandmama had to go through, I get mad at myself because I could have done more. I could do better because they made the ultimate sacrifice. They prepared us for what they knew they could not do. And I'll leave you with this story. In 1920, there was an organization called the Georgia Negro Teachers Association in 1920. They had their convention at Fort Valley State College in Fort Valley, Georgia. And they passed a resolution that every school teacher and every school principal was going to teach the essence of democracy about voting and the political process. They were going to tell their students about the Democratic Party and the Republican Party and the importance of voting. 1920, they couldn't vote. They couldn't register. But somebody said, we must prepare for the future. And they did. So don't tell me ever again about you're too busy, it doesn't matter, I ain't got time to go vote. Because your grandmama and your granddaddy laying in their graves, hoping and praying that this day would come. And we have a responsibility to make the best of it. So I go to my seat, I'm just asking one thing. Do your best and God will do the rest. Thank you.
Well, let us continue to give Dr. Picard a hand. Awesome and impactful words. What a charge we have been given. It's my prayer that we accept it and that we do change. Thank you again, Dr. Picard, for your authenticity, for your candor, for your humor, and for your wisdom. Thank you again. My friends, ladies and gentlemen, I would ask that you would please at this time receive the 70th Mayor of Columbus, our mayor, the Honorable Perry Skip Henderson, as he comes to give his remarks.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Man, what an amazing, amazing event. And Dr. Picard, so, wow. Man, oh man, oh man. You know, your remarks were so timely. The Mayor's Commission on Unity and Diversity actually over the last few years has added prosperity, because it's imperative that we try to create economic equality within Columbus and Georgia and the United States of America as well. So thank you, sir. And I do have somewhere a gift that Miss Judy Tucker is going to present to you. It is just a very, very small token, simply so that you can't say free speech. So, no, we do. We do. And please give Dr. Picard one more round of applause. And I know you belong to LaGrange, but we're going to claim you as part of the region, if you don't mind. And I'd make you bet that all these people that didn't know where LaGrange was before you spoke knew where it was when you finished. Thank you so much for joining us in Columbus, Georgia. Thank you, sir. Thank you. And I'm going to make Judy stand here for just a second. As Dr. Picard mentioned, I think it was in November, I received an email said, hey, are you going to continue the Dream Lives commemoration and event? I said, well, of course we are. Why would we not? And there was no response. And I said, wait a minute, whose responsibility is it? Yours. So I did what any natural leader would have done. I immediately took charge and delegated. Actually, I placed a call to Judy and I said, listen, I have no choice but to make this happen, because quite honestly, it was never a question that we were going to continue to have this event. But I tagged Miss Judy Tucker, who had retired, by the way, and after much crying and screaming from me, she finally relented and agreed to chair this. And let me tell you how difficult that was this year. She actually planned this event with her committee 2 times. Because we planned it as an outdoor event with vendors and kid activities and a processional, and Mother Nature decided to show who's really in charge, and so she had to plan it again. Her and her committee, who will be recognized individually later, did such an amazing job at putting this all together, adapting, and John Dorman and his crew, the police chief is here, and the law enforcement officials that helped us get this done. Please give this lady a big round. Stand up, stand up, stand up. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We are so grateful. And before I do have a few little remarks that I'm gonna make, but before I do that, I'm gonna say some thank yous, because. And I hate doing this because I know I'm going to end up missing some people, so Judy's going to help me as we kind of go through this. First of all, I also want to thank Norman Hardman. Norman Hardman is here. He is the chairperson for the Mayor's Commission on Unity, Diversity, and Prosperity. Also want to thank, of course, we've got State Representative Carolyn Hughley. She's not busy at all right now, so for her to be here is a big, big deal, and we really, really appreciate it. We have several members of the Columbus City Council. Councilor Pop Barnes is here. Councilor John House with his wife Marilyn. Marilyn, you stand up too. Because we all know in politics, it's the wife that carries most of the water in that thing. So we get that. And then, of course, Mimi Woodson. And the Mayor Pro Tem, Evelyn Turner Pugh. We also want to thank John Dorman for his quick and decisive action as we were trying to put this together. They had a huge event last night, and they were awesome at trying to get that turned around. I also want to thank who I think is probably the best city manager in the state of Georgia, Isaiah Hughley. Isaiah. We do have the police chief here. He and his law enforcement officers have been supportive at all of the Dream Lives events. And we also have from the school district, I know David Lewis, the school superintendent, is here. And Pat Hughley Green, school board member. And if I missed anybody, blame it on my lack of intelligence, not my lack of caring. Raise your hand. Did I miss any other elected officials? Well, thank y'all. And most of all, last but certainly most important, I want to thank you. I want to thank the citizens of this Bi-City area for being here today. The weather got a little dicey. You braved the weather and came out and helped us celebrate the life and the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. today. And we do it for you, we do it with you, and we do it because of you. So thank you so much. A couple of very, very brief remarks. I actually had prepared remarks. I'm not good at that because if I start reading them, I lose my place and then I'm lost forever. But I actually tore them up because as we went through the events of this morning, and by the way, I need to thank Big Dog Running. He's not here right now. Bob Jeswald. They did an amazing job on the 1 mile run and the 5K as well. But it struck me as as Judy and her group were having to plan this event for the second time, basically, that they would not let it fail. They were not going to let the rain or the weather or whatever storms came wash this away. And it kind of resonated with me that that's one of the essences of the legacy and the life and the entire principled existence of Dr. Martin Luther King, and that was, if you have enough love, you will exhibit kindness. And if you exhibit kindness, you will sustain hope. And they were not going to let the love and the kindness of this day get washed away by a storm, because storms come from all angles. Sometimes a storm is nothing more than a little wind and a lot of fear. But a lot of folks give up when that happens. The amazing thing about this community and the people sitting here, and what we must hold on to, is that if we continue to focus on our love, exhibiting kindness, and generating hope, then we can send these ripples out not only through our community, but through our state, through our country, and we can send them around the planet. So my charge to all of you is keep that in your heart. And I will acknowledge, and for some of the young people, this is going to be a heartbreaking lesson. Love is not an emotion. Love is not an emotion. It's not a state of mind. Love's a muscle. And if you don't exercise that muscle, you will lose it. But a really neat thing happens if you exercise it enough, it grows and it gets bigger. So my charge to y'all is in keeping with the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., to exercise your love, show kindness, and let's continue to create hope. Thank you guys so much for being here today. God bless you. What did I forget?
As we prepare to close out, we'll hear from the Prospect A&B Church choir as they sing for us, "I've Got to Tell It." Amen, as they got to tell it.
Praise the Lord, everybody. Wake up in here. Some of you were sleeping. I know you were. Wake up, wake up. Look at your neighbor. Look at your neighbor. Tell him, I choose to unify. Look at your neighbor. Come on, do it with me. Look at your neighbor. I choose to unify. Tell him that. I choose to unify. My brothers and sisters, we can only stamp out the darkness of division if we choose to unify. The Lord Jesus Christ is a good God, and he says to us, you have a job to do. At Prospect A&B Church, where I'm the pastor, Bo Barber, we are so thankful to have the opportunity to let you know that we're on the job, and we are going to tell it. We're going to go to the grocery store. We're going to go to the gas station. We're going to go to the restaurants, and we're going to tell it. Sister Ruth Jackson is going to come as she's one of our directors, and she's going to lead this song. Join with us in praise. Give the Lord some praise right now. Come on.
To me, I'll tell it everywhere I go. He loosed my shackles and set me free. I'll tell it everywhere I go. Everywhere I go, everywhere I go, everywhere I go. I've got to tell it everywhere I go. Oh, I've got to tell tell it everywhere I